Breaking news: in his final days in office, President Obama pardoning General James Cartwright and commuting the sentence of Chelsea Manning. Joining me now is former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton. The Chelsea Manning case, Mr. Bolton, that kind of puts all the craziness of this world together in one basket. I mean, the whole WikiLeaks thing. I mean, this guy, he was a guy originally when he was arrested. Now he's a woman through the sex change operation. But I mean, you know, he could have received a death sentence. Aiding the enemy was one of the charges originally brought against him. And now he's going to be walking free, I guess, presumably at the end of the year once the paperwork's in. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's outrageous, to say the least. I thought he should have been prosecuted with the death penalty in mind. I do think he committed treason against the United States. And the damage that his release of these incredible number of cables and other internal communications to WikiLeaks, the damage that did to the United States is just incalculable. But this is the mark of the Obama ideology, and you know, often what a president does at the end in terms of pardons and commutations really sticks with him, like Bill Clinton's pardoning of Mark Rich at the end of his administration.
That was something, yeah.
I think this shows the contempt that the president has for national security, for the criminal justice system, for the military. The list is long. Although
it's interesting, he also pardoned General Cartwright, so I assume what he's doing there is trying to balance the two pardons.
Well, you know, Cartwright was one of his favorites, so if you want to talk about a double standard for justice, this is a pretty good indication of it. But it is something we've come to expect from Barack Obama. And as I say, this probably his last official act, at least I hope so at this rate, will stick with him in his presidential history.
I bet there are a couple more pardons. The week is relatively young. Putin, Vladimir Putin today came out in this dossier business, saying some pretty wild things that about prostitutes and stuff. Essentially, dumping though on the administration, the Obama administration, for its influence on intel agencies in coming out with this dossier. What do you think about all that?
Well, Putin had several things to say, some of which I have to say hard to do, but some of which I actually agree with, which is the people who commissioned these fake reports on Trump, whether it was political opposition research in the United States, whether it was somebody overseas, really are worse than prostitutes, as Putin said, to put this kind of information out there to try and establish it as credibility. This goes beyond character assassination.
And can I just interrupt for 1 second, because the dossier was filled with so many errors, many of which became very apparent. For example, they got the wrong Trump aide in there, apparently somebody with the same name, a guy who they claim was in Prague, and he never left the country when they said he was in Prague. The CIA had this dossier for months, and they couldn't spot. This is the Central Intelligence Agency. They couldn't spot the obvious errors and mistakes in this dossier that they had had for months, and passed it on as though, you know, it was information that should be taken at face value. What's up with that?
Well, I think that's a very important question, and I have to say, I think one of the verdicts on Obama's 8 years is a decided politicization of the intelligence agencies almost across the board, certainly at the very top levels. But even down into the Central Command, when the intelligence officers there were told to understate the radical threat of ISIS and to overstate the efficacy of the U.S. aid to Iraqi forces trying to push ISIS back. This is going to be hard to overcome. I think Dan Coats and Mike Pompeo are going to have a tough job in their respective new positions, but very important that they correct this problem.
Last question. Do you think that John Brennan, the CIA director, was willing to pass this on despite all the mistakes because he had political motives in coming out with it in front of Trump and President Obama?
You know, I can't speak to this specific, but I've tagged Brennan as one of the most politicized senior officials in the intelligence community, maybe the most politicized during the entire Obama administration. And that's why the new people coming in, before they have any dog in the fight, need to get the facts out here, because the American people need to have faith in the integrity and impartiality of the intelligence community.
Absolutely. Ambassador John Bolton, wonderful to see you, sir. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Glad to do it.